Oh, there you are. How lovely to see you there. I have been blessed to become a student again these last few years of my life. And I've been asked a couple of questions lately. I wonder how you would respond to them. One afternoon, a classmate of mine from St. John's College stopped by my house just to say hi. I was actually expecting a speaker from the C.S. Lewis Institute to come speak at the United States Naval Academy. I opened the door and I said, I thought you were someone else. And he said, oh, who were you expecting? I said, well, actually a speaker's coming to go speak at the Naval Academy in a few minutes. And he said, what's he going to talk about? I said, the gospel. And he said, what is the gospel? I wonder, how would you answer that question? On another occasion, I was just coming out of class. I had a 3-minute walk to the next class when a young man, a classmate of mine, ran up to me and said, Mr. Phillips, wait up. And when he caught up to me, he said, I have a question for you. I said, sure, what is it? He said, are you religious? I ask you again, how would you answer the question? What is the gospel? What is religion? Let's start with the gospel. If I were to ask you what was the oldest world religion, what would you say? If you went to Wikipedia or other sources, you'd probably find Hinduism listed slightly ahead of Judaism. But that's actually not correct. The gospel began in the garden when Adam and Eve sinned and God came looking for them. They ran and hid themselves because judgment was coming. They tried to cover themselves with fig leaves to make themselves presentable to God. But God said, that doesn't work. Try these. And he holds up animal skins. Here was their rescue from judgment, a divinely provided garment at the cost of shed blood. But the garment had to be accepted. It had to be put on. Here is the gospel first articulated in the garden. Judgment is coming. A rescue is available, the garments, but you have to accept the terms of the rescuer. Put the garments on. The gospel is the world's oldest religion. And I put religion in quotes because we're going to distinguish it from other religions in a minute. The gospel, the story of rescue, gets repeated again and again in the Old Testament. Noah, a flood is coming, judgment's coming, but a rescue is available, an ark. But you'll only be rescued if you accept the terms of the rescuer and come into the ark. There was a famine in Canaan. Jacob and his sons were starving. You know the story of how they meet up with Joseph, who's a prince of Egypt, and he says, come to Egypt and you'll live. Death by starvation was threatening them, but a rescue was made available. But they had to accept the terms of the rescuer, come to Egypt. 400 years later, their descendants were enslaved in Egypt. God sent Moses to lead them out of their slavery. He said, I'm going to sweep over the land and kill the firstborn son in every household unless you smear the blood of a lamb on your doorpost. Judgment was coming. A rescue was provided, but you had to accept the terms of the rescuer. You had to put the blood on your doorpost. Later they were in the desert. They were starving. But God provided manna for food, but they had to go collect it. On another occasion, they were suffering and dying from snake bites. God had Moses erect a pole with a serpent on it, the serpent being the symbol of their suffering. All who came to look upon the serpent were delivered, rescued from their pain and their suffering. This is the gospel once again. And there's many more. Rahab, she lived in a small house in the walls of Jericho. She knew judgment was coming. She said, "We've heard all about you. We know God is with you. We know He's going to destroy the city. Save us." The Israeli spies said, "Call all who will come to join you in this room. Hang a scarlet cord out your window. Do this, and you and all who come will be saved." Judgment was coming. A rescue was made available, but you had to accept the terms of the rescuer. This is the gospel. Now, I want to distinguish the gospel from the other world religions. Over 90% of the people in the world today identify with one of 5 world religions or worldviews. These are Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, and atheism. Yes, atheism is as much a religion as any of the others because it's a faith-based belief system. Now, if we look at these major worldviews, we'll discover that 4 of them belong in one category, while one of them stands alone. Here's how they all begin their narrative. Somehow, we have become separated from the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is what existed before anything else came into being. For the Christian or Muslim, it is God or Allah. For a Hindu, it's the impersonal spirit Brahman. For a Buddhist, it's nothing or nirvana. And for the atheist, it is the universe or matter. Regardless of who or what they regard as the ultimate reality, they all begin the same way, that somehow we've become separated from this ultimate reality. But it's at this point the narratives divide. All but one continues like this: we need to find our way back, and with the help of a messenger and a message, we can do it. But one of the 5 worldviews, the gospel, says you can't find your way back. You must be rescued. And with the help of a messenger and a message, you can. But there's even a more interesting twist to these narratives. In the 4 other worldviews, the messenger is a person and the message is a book. But in the gospel, it's reversed. The messenger is a book and the message is a person. Jesus did not come with the Bible or the scrolls of the Torah in hand and say, "This is the way, the truth, and the life." Jesus came and said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, and this points you to me." As I said earlier, the gospel has a distinct uniqueness. It is so different from other worldviews, I believe it should be in a category of its own, not a religion. So we return now to the second question I was asked. Mr. Phillips, are you religious? Now, knowing what you know now, how would you answer the question? I paused for a few seconds and said, "No." To which he responded, "Oh, I thought from some of your comments in class that you might be." I continued, "Religion, you see, is about following some do's and don'ts so you can find or earn your way back to an ultimate reality. But I'm a follower of Jesus and His teaching, the gospel. And that's about a God who found His way to me. And now I do things, but out of gratitude for my rescue, rather than from any sense of earning." He said, "This is tracking with me. But follower of Jesus, I mean, isn't that like Christianity?" And I said, "Not everyone who professes to be a Christian is a follower of Jesus' teachings." After a brief pause, he said, "This is really tracking with me." And then he offered, "I was raised Buddhist, but there's just something missing in my life." To this I said, "You know, Buddha and Jesus' teachings actually stand alone in one sense from all the other worldviews. You see, in all the other worldviews, the source of evil or suffering is external to man. But Buddha and Jesus said evil is internal to man. Buddha said we have wrong desires. Jesus said we have a fallen nature. We are rebellious towards God. So I said, you see, in one sense, Buddha has something very right, and I can see why many people are attracted to his teachings. But where Buddha and Jesus differ is on the solution to evil. Buddha says that too is internal to man. He can extinguish his desires, follow his practices, his book. Jesus says the solution is external, that man needs a rescuer to restore his fallen nature. Then this young man said without a pause, "This is really tracking with me." We were just steps away from the door to our next class, the end of this 3-minute walk, when I said to him, "The decision you have to make is this. Is the solution to evil in the human heart internal or external?" He opened the door to our next class and said, "We have to talk further." Sometimes Christianity is practiced as a religion. Some people see Jesus as a messenger, and the Bible and tradition being things we're supposed to do to earn our way to God. That's religion. That's not the gospel. And when Christianity is practiced this way, it gives a great deal of credibility to the idea that all religions are basically the same. Because when Christianity is practiced like a religion, they are. But when Christianity is practiced as it should be, the gospel, it stands apart. I want to ask you, this idea that the gospel is unlike all other world religions, is that not what we would expect to see if there is a great deceiver who does not want us to know the truth? And his deceptions, in their effort to deny the truth, would they not look more like one another than any of them would look like the truth, the gospel? The gospel is not a religion. How did I answer the young man's question, what is the gospel? In a second, I simply said, all the other worldviews are about trying to find our way back to an ultimate reality. The gospel is about an ultimate reality, a personal God who found his way to us, who rescued us. And its only terms are that we accept the terms of his rescue, which is to believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and accept that rescue provided through his death on a cross. And all who do this would be saved. The gospel is unlike any story that's ever been told. It truly is the greatest story ever told.